Hi again, and welcome to the second episode of my presentation. In the first episode, I very briefly outlined some of the concepts that led us through creating the course, designing the course that, as I mentioned, is the basis of my dissertation supervised by my professor, Dr. Marandi. In order to design the course, first of all, we needed to conduct a kind of needs analysis and identify the factors that we needed for the design of the course. So we conducted several interviews with call experts, with professors who use technology, with professors who teach teachers how to use technology in language teaching, and some classroom teachers who use technology in their language teaching. Since the professional identity construction and reconstruction is the main aim through transformative learning, as I mentioned, conducted and represented by Plouffe and Pratt 2007, learning within the online communities seemed to be the optimal. So we conducted it as a kind of online, fully virtual course, including both synchronous and asynchronous ideas. But first of all, I should mention that we used the data from the interview for a construction of teacher technology integration professional growth questionnaire, and this questionnaire is now in the developmental process, and we need some people to fill them in order to validate it. But in order to focus more on the course, let me go back to the slides. This is the interface of our course, integrating technology with English language teaching, IT-ELT 2019. 8 people volunteered to participate. These were MA students, PhD students, language teachers, and even a BA student who was experienced in language teaching. Hands-on experiences, hands-on practices were the major part. In addition, some theoretical frameworks, theoretical theories, some concepts were included as well. It included both synchronous and asynchronous interaction. Our asynchronous interaction was on the Moodle of University of the Center of Virtual and Open Education at my university, and it had many limitations as compared with EVO Moodle for Teacher. Many of the features were disabled and we had to deal with many limitations. But as a major works, as major activities, first of all, not on a weekly basis, generally there was in fact a kind of section called stories, in which teachers were, the participants in fact, were encouraged to share their stories of technology use, their failures, their success, their dreams, and they commented on one another and shared their stories as a kind of inquiry, narrative inquiry. And also they were asked, first of all, at the beginning of each week, they were provided with some theories, some links to some pages, some book chapters, mainly based on Shafiee and Zahra 2017. Zahra, I think, I'm not sure about the pronunciation. And some other articles. And they were encouraged to evaluate one tool, to take a look at the tool that I introduced or the tools that they used for each session. Each week, in fact, we focused on one skill, one component, 1 week for grammar and tools for grammar and vocabulary, ones for reading skills, one for listening skill, and 1 week for assessment. That constituted 14 weeks, 1 week for course design, for materials development, etc. During each week, for example, they were encouraged to evaluate one tool. I provided a screencast showing how to evaluate it. First of all, describing the major figures in a couple of minutes, then talking about the theoretical perspectives that we get, and then talking about the way that we use it or not, why we introduce it to other people, do we introduce it to other teacher, and in which classes we can use it, in which classes it's not appropriate for use, based on different features. And that was a kind of critical evaluation of different tools for the participants' own purposes. And then they were encouraged to design a mini lesson in a group. It was a joint practice. They created a lesson and uploaded as a post on their social networks if they had, or on the Moodle. And finally, they provided us with a reflection, a very short reflection paper, again in a particular forum. And then sometimes they commented on one another reflections, and they they remembered some ideas they had, and that was a quite kind of joint reflection. Finally, at the end of the course, they were encouraged to write a self-assessment essay and a course evaluation essay. In these essays, they talked about the challenges, their rewards, their experience, what we are doing now as a result of the course, or what they learned, what they do not do of these course instructions. And it was assessing themselves, their progress, and also the kind of feedback on the course. In addition to all this, we were connected as a kind of support group on a WhatsApp group, in which we had some friendly talks. Sometimes we shared some arrangements. Every week I shared the link of, for example, the asynchronous class that I mentioned, the link of, yes, the video and also the audio and kind of report. But this constituted our asynchronous interaction on the Moodle. We had weekly live meetings as synchronous interaction on Adobe Connect, again on the server of the university. And again, some of the features were limited. In this week, so I talked about the materials that I introduced, I outlined, and we discussed the theoretical and conceptual framework for any topic of week. For example, here in this week we are talking about a reading comprehension skill, and I'm outlining the book chapter, Liao and English 2017, about L2 learning theories. We were talking about L2 learning theories. Students interacted in text, in chat boxes, and also sometimes they had the right or microphone and they could speak on microphone. Some of them were mic shy, some of them didn't like to even appear on the webcam, and of course, if they all wanted to appear on the webcam and wanted to speak on the microphone, the speed would slow down, so they could use text box and microphone generally. In addition to discussing materials and theoretical concepts, we evaluated last week's activities, we troubleshooted, we solved problems of students. Students discussed the challenges they faced, and generally it was a great discussion. Sometimes it led to very friendly and humorous discussions. Sometimes it was serious. It depended on the problem faced. I tried to share the desktop and show them how to work well and how to solve their problems. And also at the end of the session, so I explained the layout of the next week. In addition to explaining this layout, explaining the activities, to clarify everything, I also provided them on the Moodle with some video tutorials explaining what I meant. At the end of the course, they were supposed to work on one session, for example, on Adobe Connect or any other video conferencing tool. But since they felt more comfortable with Adobe Connect, I provided each of them with one link on the Moodle, and I gave them the right of a host so that they could design one session, and then they use one of their mini lessons. They developed one of their mini lessons that they had designed during the course for teaching, or they created a new mini lesson, and that was their final project, to teach us something, to teach us the mini lesson that had received comments and had been developed, or any other idea that they want. That was really interesting and rewarding for them. As you see here on the top right under the MMVC, it's a group work teaching us something as their final project. And then finally, they in the middle picture, it shows the self-assessment and course evaluation section, the way they were encouraged to share their ideas, and the evaluation of their own progress and evaluation of the course, because during the course they got that evaluative and critical view during evaluation of different tools. So they were encouraged now to evaluate the course, evaluate themselves, evaluate everything that they had gone through. That was really reflective and really critical, in fact. Also, as I mentioned, there were some challenges. I didn't write challenges and rewards. I showed just the rewards, because challenges, also solving them at the end, are rewarding. So, for example, the badges were disabled on the server, on the Moodle. I had to give them badges by adding one label, and below the label, I had to check manually that each of the person's activities is completed, then add their name, copy the badge. Of course, these badges were not downloadable, but they liked it very much, and usually they talk about how much motivated they got and how much competitive this condition was for them when they saw the one badge for one student, one participant, and then they tried to contribute more and more. Generally, my students, the participants now are really more motivated than before in using technology. Some of them are conducting research on this. Some of them are preparing for doing their studies or their classes. For example, one of them was using technology for her classes on Instagram, but now she says that I'm learning much more sophisticated tools, and now I can improve my teaching, I can improve my profession. Generally, it was rewarding, first of all, for me, as my first experience of online teaching, and the feedback that I received from my participant, the way that I learned a lot during the process. And I hope I can repeat such courses and learn much more from learners through through experiential learning. And finally, I would like to say that the forming these communities of like-minded people is very important, and we are trying to hold more courses. We should improve infrastructures. We should improve more workshops and teacher development courses in our area, in my area, for example, because there are some sporadic courses, but we are trying to create a kind of integrated community of teachers. And thank you so much for your attention.